Hello, welcome to Relation Tales. Today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go. Here is my story. Today's story is about my loving wife of 30 years who cheated on me. I discovered her affair with her young boss. Otherwise, she could have continued it. Well, let's go to the story and see what happened in the life of her and the young boss. When I regained some semblance of consciousness, the room was full of bright lights and I sensed people pulling and tugging on my body. But I felt no pain, just a mental awareness. Am I dead? Is this what death feels like? I sensed wires and tubes everywhere. I was kept in a medically induced coma for 3 days. I opened my eyes and my family was surrounding the bed. My wife Helen next to me on my right and my 5 children surrounding the bed. At this point, I had little memory of what happened or why I was in the hospital. My loving wife looked at me and said, "Dear, you have scared us this time, but you are going to be okay now." I looked at Helen and asked, "What happened?" "One of the stents that was inserted when you had your triple bypass surgery failed. It was the graft that needed a stent. A month later, it was just too weak and collapsed around the stent, which in turn stopped the blood flow." Suddenly, parts of my memory returned. The previous year, after my annual checkup, my doctor found blockages near my heart and ordered immediate triple bypass surgery. This procedure is open heart surgery and very complicated. Vessels were harvested from other parts of my body and replaced the damaged or blocked blood vessels. About a month after the surgery, further tests revealed one graft did not take as well as the other two, and a stent was put in to strengthen it. Until now, we thought everything was okay. Because of the complications, I was off work for almost 6 months. I followed my doctor's instructions to the letter, lost weight, joined a gym for exercise, and was very careful about what I ate and drank. Helen, my wife, was my biggest supporter and was right there with me throughout. When I exercised, she did as well and even ate what I ate. My weight dropped 40 pounds within the next 6 months, and Helen lost 20 pounds while firming up her now trim 49-year-old body. She looked as good as she did when we married, and there was not a wrinkle or ounce of fat in sight. Update: I met Helen in college. She was a freshman and only 18 while I was a 20-year-old junior. Within a few weeks, we were dating exclusively. The next year, we found an apartment and moved in together. I was to graduate that year while Helen would be entering her 3rd year of college. I convinced my parents that I needed an MBA to land a good job, and they quickly agreed. That kept Helen and me together until she got her degree. And by then, I had completed my master's. So, on a warm June day following our graduation, Helen and I were married. We had the perfect marriage. We did everything together. And not just because of the same interests, but because we wanted to be together, something called love. I believe 5 kids came along within the first 7 years. And finally, after the last one, I got a little snip. We have always been very family-oriented, and our children were as devoted to us as we were to them. Family life with 5 kids, 3 girls and 2 boys, kept us busy, and we worked very hard to stay out of debt. One of us was always taking one or all of them somewhere. We kept them involved with karate, judo, ballet, dance, piano, baseball, soccer, or something else. They weren't all athletes but did enjoy participating and learned many valuable life lessons during the process. Before we knew it, they were off to college, one after the other, then, in the same process, were married. Helen and I assumed all the college loans as well as marriage costs because we wanted to give our kids the best start possible without loans over their heads. We had saved for all this, but boy did I feel broke and would be in debt for another 10 years. But Helen and I were still young and had many more years to work, and save for our retirement. We didn't regret a penny we spent on the kids' education or marriage. It was money well invested. And even though I realized we missed vacations to exotic places like the Caribbean and Europe, I never regretted the money we spent ensuring our kids got the right start in life. After my dad had retired, I took over his large insurance business in Plano, Texas. We had 3 brokers and 2 office staff, and they were kept very busy. Helen waited until our youngest was in school, and then went to work for a pharmaceutical company in Dallas. She was a sales rep and had to visit doctors' offices in the area, promoting new drugs and giving them samples to pass on to patients. Helen was very much an extrovert and was perfect for the job. Helen's looks didn't hurt her job either. She is 5'9". Her weight before working out with me was about 140, and I thought that looked good on her. But after diet and working out, she got herself down to her college weight of 120. Our love life has always been full and completely satisfying. We have tried everything together and are always open to new ideas from the other. Neither of us has felt the need to stray, and we have never even had a chat about what it might be like. I am not a jealous man and sometimes allow others to dance with Helen when the opportunity arose. Helen never permitted any of these men to have roving hands. We aren't big into dancing, but we do accompany Christmas parties or other business-related events. My name is Edward, but most call me Ed. Unlike Helen, I have changed over the years. My hair is quickly turning gray. I have gained weight and allowed myself to get out of shape through exercise and diet. I now have a new body. Now, does that make me a bad husband? Not at all. I think of myself as a romantic and a very committed soulmate to Helen. We have romantic nights out every Friday or Saturday. She has fresh flowers delivered to her office every week, and our love life was simply amazing. Now, because of my heart issues, our love life has slackened off, but I try to ensure Helen is kept satisfied. Helen and I both work hard to make our marriage work, and I think we do a great job. Simply put, we have a wonderful life together, sharing our love for each other. After my family had left, I discovered I was in ICU and would spend several days there. The doctors were very concerned about brain damage and wanted me kept under constant surveillance. I didn't understand what brain damage had to do with my heart, but I was far too weak to either ask or argue. My family returned that night and spent a couple of hours with me. Helen would look at me, and I could see the sadness in her eyes. I told her I was going to be okay and there was no need to be sad. She remained silent. The next morning, I was visited by a police officer. I asked him if I had broken the law. He looked at me and laughed. No, you didn't break any law. I was the first person on the scene after you triggered the alarm. You obviously played a large part in saving my life. I will forever be in your debt. No, it's just part of my job. I was glad I was nearby and was able to get there as soon as I did. I have little memory, so can you tell me exactly what happened? Well, I can tell you what I know, and you may have to fill in the spaces. Around 2 a.m. last Friday night, I received notification of an alarm coming from your house. I was on scene within minutes and waiting for backup, as we thought there was a burglar inside that had tripped the alarm. The alarm company tried calling you first on your house phone, then your cell phone, then your wife's cell phone. Only your wife answered, but she was in Denver and had no clue what was going on but said you should be in the house and referred us back to you. I then started walking around the house and looking for evidence of a break-in. I could not find any proof of a break-in, so using my flashlight, I began looking in the windows. Finally, in the back of the house, I saw you lying unconscious on the floor in the kitchen. I had to break the door to gain entry, and upon a quick examination, I thought you likely had a heart attack. I immediately called for emergency services and began giving you CPR. The fire department was first on the scene, and they are all trained EMTs, so I let them take over treatment. Finally, an ambulance arrived, and you were rushed here to the hospital for treatment. I notified my office that I had had to break your back door to enter your house, and since your wife was in Denver and you were in the hospital, I was told to remain at the house until the door could be secured. A carpenter was called to nail plywood across the door to secure it. I also called the alarm company to silence the alarm. Before leaving the house, I tried to clean up the kitchen. The EMTs and ambulance crew had left it a bit untidy. Amongst the mess, I found your cell phone, which I am returning to you now. And that is all I know. Update 1. From what the officer told me, I was able to fill in some of the holes in the story. I remember waking up with severe chest pains. I got up to get a drink of water and take an aspirin, but only got as far as the refrigerator before collapsing against it. The panel for the alarm was right next to me, and I somehow found the strength to press the panic button. I dropped to my knees knowing I was in serious trouble and wanting to see my wife's. I managed to say, "Hey Siri, FaceTime Helen." A few seconds later, undressed Helen appeared asking what was wrong. But by then, the alarm was blaring, and I could neither hear nor respond. She was obviously undressed. Sleeping in the undressed isn't an uncommon way for her to sleep, but the hand that appeared on her shoulder should not have been there. That is when I passed out and would have died had it not been for the perseverance of the deputy. Late that afternoon, I finally saw the heart doctor. "Ed, you may be the luckiest man I have ever treated." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just asked, why? In any medical world, you should not have survived. I don't know how long you were on the floor before that deputy found you, but when he got to you, I think you had stopped breathing. I have no clue how long your brain had been denied oxygen, but it was certainly long enough to possibly cause damage, which is why we had to keep you in a coma for 3 days. He began CPR long enough to keep you going until the fire department arrived and took over. The ambulance crew thought they lost you twice on the way to the hospital. Once they had to stop the ambulance, and both team members had to perform CPR before they could continue. It was touch and go even after you got to the hospital. That graft that was inserted last year just wore out. We were concerned about it from the start, which is why we later put a stent in, but unfortunately, it failed. You have to know you did nothing wrong. You have lost weight, exercised, and stayed on a diet. You have done everything I asked you to do. I am not sure if you have any damage to the brain yet, but at the moment, I don't think you do. About that time, Helen arrived. She said, "Welcome," and kissed me. Because of the memories of that night, I was absolutely heartbroken. My loving wife of 30 years had cheated on me. I realized I was in no shape to either confront her or discuss the matter, so I just acted like it was hard for me to talk. I did realize at some point there would have to be a discussion, but how could I prevent myself from saying that I knew of her cheating? Was it an affair? I didn't know. I was in the hospital for a total of 3 weeks before being released. I was instructed to take it easy at home, not lift anything over 5 pounds, and no sex. Avoiding a sexual relationship wasn't hard because I wasn't sure I would ever be able to have a sexual relationship again with Helen. They say time heals all wounds, but not for me. My heart was healing, but not my heartache. Part of my heart felt like a hole had been bored through it, and I wasn't sure it was repairable. Helen took time off from work and nursed me night and day. I knew she loved me, but I wasn't sure I could ever return that love. We had been together long enough for her to sense that I was unhappy and there was something serious bothering me. Finally, after I had been home about 3 weeks, we finally sat down to talk. "Ed, I have known since your attack that something serious is bothering you, so can you please tell me what's wrong?" "Yes, actually, what you have done may have made my situation worse." "I know, so I want you to tell me everything, but please start with why. What are you talking about? I know you have had and may still be having an affair." "That's ridiculous. How can you accuse me of that? Do you want me to show you proof? Are you that stupid? Why can't you be honest and just tell me?" "There is no proof, and I have not been unfaithful. I don't understand how you can even sit there and accuse me of anything such as this. You must be mad. Do you remember me calling on FaceTime the night I was sick? Do you remember a hand appeared on your shoulder and someone saying, 'Honey, is it about that alarm again?' I saw it all, and it will be in my memory bank forever." Actually, I had not heard a word, but Helen didn't know that. "Do you need any more proof? You have broken our marriage vows and disappeared on a bogus trip to be with your lover." "Yes, I know it was bogus because I called your HR, and they said you took 2 personal days. I cannot begin to tell you of the hurt and pain you have caused me. I almost died, and all this just made my recovery worse. Do you understand now why I have been so cold the past 4 weeks? Now, once again, I want the whole story starting with why. If you choose not to answer, then I expect you to pack a bag and leave." "Ed, this is painful. Are you sure you want me to tell you?" "I told you if you choose not to answer, then pack your bags and leave. I am not going to sit here and listen to your lies." "Okay, I will tell you, but I would prefer not to. Please don't threaten me until I tell you everything. And if you want me to leave, then I will." Update 2. I sat there staring at her until she continued. "I need to start 4 months ago at my company Christmas party. Do you remember warning me about the guy who had his hands all over me while dancing?" "Yes, I was so angry, I wanted to confront him." "Please don't tell me you had an affair with him." "Well, please be assured, we have not had an affair. David is my immediate boss, and since he started working in Dallas last fall, he has been putting the make on me. I have always been able to prevent him without a problem. I wasn't, and I'm still not interested in extramarital sex. I guess I am confused, but did you or didn't you just travel to Denver with him and spend 2 days and nights in the same hotel room? Please tell me that was just friendly and you didn't have sex, Ed." "Yes, we had sex. I regret every second of that weekend, too." "Oh, I bet he is younger than me and in great shape." "Yes, he is 15 years younger than we are. 3 months ago, I had my annual evaluation. David knew that I have been doing the same job for almost 15 years and asked if I was going to continue doing that until I retire. You know I have been unhappy with all the driving around Dallas that I have to do, and the traffic just keeps getting worse. He asked why I never put in for a promotion. I told him I had applied for his job, but they selected him from the Atlanta office. He then explained he was on a short list for a promotion, and his job would be available again. I told him I was very interested in the opportunity to advance. He then asked how far I was prepared to go. I asked him what he wanted, and he explained that he wanted sex, and if I agreed, he would guarantee that I got his job. My mouth was hanging open. Helen was being blackmailed and had agreed to the base desires. I told him that was blackmail and could get him into a lot of trouble. He said it was between him and me and nobody else. I explained I was very happily married and did not want to do anything that would put my marriage in jeopardy. He assured me that all he wanted was 1 weekend, and then he would make sure I got promoted. Helen, why did you fall for that? I have been after you for years to quit that job. We don't need your income. And with me sick last year and now ill again, you have taken weeks off without pay. It will take us a little longer to pay off our debt, but we will manage. I know we don't need the money, but I enjoy keeping busy. Besides, with the kids' college and marriages, we needed the extra income to pay off their loans. I really, for the most part, enjoy what I do, just not the driving or dealing with my boss. So, before you finish your story, have you gotten your promotion? No, apparently. He didn't get the promotion, so he is still there. I was getting angry. Do you mean you spent the weekend ducking and didn't get promoted? Helen was visibly shaking and had started crying. I would never have agreed if I thought he wouldn't honor his word, so finish your story. He kept after me every day at work. I kept telling him I didn't want to cause any problems with my marriage. Then he started getting angry. And about 6 weeks ago, I finally agreed. We made up a story about attending a management meeting in Denver and picked the weekend we were to go, Thursday morning and return Saturday. He made all the arrangements. I remember how reluctant you were to go, but you kept saying you were hoping to get promoted. You have never in all the time you have worked for that company ever been on an overnight business trip, so I thought it was a bit odd. Okay, please finish your story. You drove me to the airport. And then I met David in the departure lounge. We had a nice flight. He had booked business seats, and he had a hard time keeping his hands off me. He booked one room with a king-sized bed. And he became passionate as soon as we closed the door. That was just Thursday afternoon. And then we spent the day sightseeing, then had dinner. We had a short nap, and he was just starting when the alarm company called. I was going down when you called. The alarm was so loud I couldn't hear you and hoped you didn't see David's hand. Of course, now I realize you did. Your face was as white as a sheet. And with the alarm going off, I realized something was wrong. So I immediately left for the airport and took the first flight home. So, you enjoyed the sex, then? Yes, David made me feel young and beautiful. No woman wants to feel old, and he offered an opportunity for me to feel young again. I regret it. I feel used, and Ed, I am so very sorry. I'm sorry I betrayed our wedding vows and the special relationship we shared. I lied and deceived you, something I have never done in our marriage, and I'm totally humiliated. Helen, I think you are telling some truth. However, you've been to and from work several times since I have come home from the hospital. I am sure you have had discussions and most likely sex with David. Yes, he makes a point of seeing me every time I go in, but I haven't had sex with him since we were in Denver. He keeps reminding me how good it was and he is pressuring me to see him again. Now he just wants me for an afternoon here in Dallas. I have told him no several times. And there is no way I will see him again. I promise you that. Helen, how can I trust you? I remember last January you got your hair dyed and then started updating your wardrobe to sexier clothes. I think your affair started soon after the Christmas party. I think I was right because she didn't respond. Her lack of response told me all I needed to confirm my suspicion. This has been an ongoing affair and most likely still is. If you had come to see me when this first started, we could have been able to avoid everything that has happened. I don't want you to go to work at all until we can figure out a way forward with this. I may need some work information, though. Can you access your company's website from home? Yes, I can log in remotely. Ed, do you want me to leave? Is that what you want? Do you want to be with David? No, I don't want to be with him. I've already told you that I want you and want to continue with our marriage. I will quit my job tomorrow if you want me to. Tell me what you want. Helen, I feel very sorry for you. You have been seduced by him, and I doubt if there was ever any possibility of getting his job. He was just using that as leverage over you. I hope he hasn't given you an STD. Helen gasped, and then I saw the tears forming in her eyes again. Oh my God, I never thought of it. We'll see our doctor immediately. Well, we haven't had sex since my heart attack, so nothing has been passed on to me. Have you had sex with anyone else since then, Ed? You must think I'm a slut. No, I haven't ducked anyone else and had no intention to either. How could you even suggest such a thing? Well, you were quite willing to fall into his bed, so how can I trust you when you say you haven't? You know what they say about once you get the taste of something. I think you have gotten a good dose. Ed, please let's not go through all that. David was younger. Do I love him? No. Do I want to keep seeing him? No, none of those. I hope I never see him again. Helen, he needs to feel our pain. Yes, I said our pain because I sense you are hurting too. Yes, I am hurting. I am so ashamed of what I have done. Are you hurting, sorry, and ashamed because you got found out or because of your adult? I am sorry we got found out. I thought if you never knew, our marriage would remain perfect as it was before my affair. Helen, I think that is the wrong answer. Maybe you need to pack a bag and stay with one of our kids for a few days. I need time to think, and you need to think about your answer. Just remember, there is a consequence for every action. Also, stay away from work and in particular that best. I got up and went into my computer room. Helen hung around the living room for a few minutes, then packed a bag and left. Update 3, left update 3. In my line of business, we have lots of resources available. One is a good friend who happens to be a private investigator. I called and explained the situation. asking that he get all the information possible on Helen's boss, whose name is David Jenkins. Also, I told him I needed Helen followed for a few days. I assumed she was going to stay with one of our children and would check and let him know because I wasn't sure how much she could be trusted. Kick her. I wanted to forgive, but that last answer was so wrong. She was sorry that I had discovered her affair, which meant to me she would have otherwise continued it. I waited about an hour and checked the location of her phone with my Find a Phone app. She was at our oldest daughter's house, so I let the pie know. He had an army of people working for him so he could trade off several people watching Helen without being noticed. I called our family lawyer, Ted Brown, who agreed to visit after he finished for the day. We often played golf together and shared a lot of gossip over a six-pack. I had a cold one waiting for him when he arrived. I told him that I just needed advice and explained the entire story. Ted immediately said several crimes had occurred. First, Helen's boss, David, used extortion through coercion to blackmail Helen to have sex in return for a promotion. He was sure the company, as large as it is, would have a strong code of conduct for employees. He also thought there would be a morality clause buried in the code of conduct. Finally, he said Helen was a victim of sexual harassment. Furthermore, having said all that without proof, it was just Helen's word against Jenkins, so I felt back at square one. I told him to give me a few days to work on this, and I would come back to him. Ted said, "Get me proof," and we have them nailed to the wall. But we had to follow procedures. He asked if I was going to divorce Helen. Not today. Maybe tomorrow. I would feel differently, but not today. I was still taking a lot of meds and went to bed early. I needed the sleep as the day had been very stressful, but sleep came hard. What was I going to do with my wife? Her fate lay with her, not me. I thought to myself that she had not told me the truth about her affair. My daughter called early the next morning. "Dad, what have you done to Mom?" "Honey, I haven't done a thing to her." "What did she tell you?" "Not a lot. She cried all night. She is a mess." "Where is she?" "Mom said she was going to work." I had expressly asked her not to do that. "Okay, call me when she returns." She said she was going to spend tonight with a girlfriend, so she took her suitcase. "I need to go. I will talk to you later." "Bye, Dad." "Bye, baby." Thinking I needed to be proactive, I called Helen. "Helen, how are you feeling today?" "Well, not very good." "Good. I've just left Karen's house." "I know. She called me and said you were going to work." "I don't know where I am going. I just couldn't stay with Karen again tonight." "Come home, then." "Are you sure?" "Yes. I will put a pot of coffee on. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And she disconnected the call. I was so afraid she was going to see her lover again. I quickly called my pie friend. "Hey, it's Ed. Do you have anything for me? We have been following your wife, and I thought she was heading for David Jenkins' apartment, but she has turned around. Now, there is a lot of information out there on David Jenkins, and we are separating the good from the bad. We'll get that report to you later today. Do you want us to keep surveillance on your wife?" "Yes, at least for the next 4 or 5 days." I was sitting in the kitchen when Helen arrived. "Grab a cup of coffee, Ed. I am so sorry for what was said yesterday. I didn't want the affair discovered because of the way it would affect our marriage. Not that I wanted to continue playing with David." She took a sip of coffee, then continued, "I am sorry because I committed adultery and broke our wedding vows. We have had an excellent marriage, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." "Helen, that is what I wanted to hear." "Thank you. By the way, where were you going this morning?" "I was going to see David and confront him. I need closure with him and all his harassment. And you wouldn't have had goodbye sex." "How did you know where he lives?" "Have you been to his place before?" "Yes, he asked for a ride home once. But please believe me, I have not stepped foot in his apartment." "So you have never slept with him in his apartment?" "No, never." "Helen, I'm sorry. You have never given me a reason to be jealous, and now I find out that bastard slept with you, so I am a little insecure right now." Helen came over and sat in my lap and gave me a big hug and said, "I need you to hold me." We had a light lunch, and then, since we were both exhausted from a sleepless night, went back to bed and held each other as we slept all afternoon. I was still unsure what path to proceed, but Helen was not making my decision easy. That night, Helen and I were watching TV when I muted the sound and turned to her. I explained to her that I had planned to sue her company as well as David Jenkins. She was surprised and tried to talk me out of suing. "Helen, why are you fighting this instead of supporting me? You have already told me that you will quit your job and weren't seeing Jenkins. Your reaction isn't what I expected from you. I would just like this mess to go away without hurting anyone else or my company. You know what extortion is, and that is what David was doing to you through coercion. Do you want him to get away free and clear so he can do it again? Do you honestly think I am going to sit here and do nothing? That bastard tried to break up our marriage, and now I intend to destroy his life. I don't think he would do it again." I unmuted the TV and said, "Wait, I will be right back." I went to my computer room and printed the documents my pi had sent. "Helen, I need to show you something that was emailed to me." I scanned each page until I found what I was looking for. "Look, this bastard had to leave Atlanta because of a sexual harassment suit that couldn't be proven yet brought discredit to the company. Oh, and in college, he was charged with but the charges couldn't be proven. Why are you defending him? I almost think you have feelings for him and would like to continue having slept with him." She got up and turned to me and in an angry voice said, "Do what you need to do." Then she disappeared into the guest bedroom. I could tell she was angry and upset because of my plans to take legal action. Why was she trying to defend him? Was she in love with him? Update 4. I had another restless night of sleep. Every time I felt like we were honest and there might be a possibility of reconciling, Helen kept throwing roadblocks in my path. The next morning, I was again in the kitchen when she walked in. "Good morning, would you like some breakfast?" "No thanks, I'm going out for a couple of hours. I will be back before noon." She left with no kiss or telling me she loved me. I was sure she was in contact with Jenkins and had most likely texted him all night. I felt us drifting away from each other and deep down felt that there would be no reconciliation. Helen was gone for 2 hours before she returned. The pi called. Ed, she met Jenkins at Starbucks on 3rd Street. They had coffee and talked for over an hour before departing. She kissed him goodbye. That was all I needed to know to formulate my decision. Helen returned around noon and found me in the kitchen and poured herself a cup of coffee. "Helen, didn't you have enough coffee at Starbucks? Did you have me followed?" "No, one of my customers works there and saw you with Jenkins. Apparently, you were quite cozy with him." "Yes, I met him, and like I told you yesterday, I was trying to get closure." "So do you always give a guy a kiss when you get closure?" "Helen, pack your bag and leave because I am tired of your lies and deceit. Go to Jenkins for all I care because we are finished. I know you are still finding ways to see him and continue your affair. How do you say to your wife of so many years that your marriage has become a sham and now it's finished? How can you give up so much in so many years of a loving marriage?" I stayed in the kitchen while she packed and left the house. Later, I had a call from the pi confirming Helen was at her lover's apartment. I thanked him for the information and told him to send a bill as I no longer needed his services. The next day was very busy. I contacted my lawyer and explained to him that I wanted to have Helen served. And the quicker the better, but preferably at her lover's apartment. I split all of our bank accounts and canceled joint credit cards. I needed to get her name off of anything that we held jointly. The only thing I didn't cancel was her cell phone. I wanted to keep her on my account for a while. That afternoon, after much thought, I called my lawyer friend, Ted, and instructed him to sue both the pharmaceutical company and David Jenkins, hopefully at the same time. The company for allowing management to coerce a subordinate employee into a sexual situation through blackmail, which resulted in a broken marriage. Jenkins was sued for extortion of a subordinate employee and sexual harassment. I wanted him sued for breaking up my marriage. But it was just as much Helen's fault. I realized the case would be weak without evidence, but it would bring unwanted attention to him and the company he represented. Ted had already done most of the work on these and had the paperwork ready. Before we could sue Jenkins or the pharmaceutical company, we had to file an administrative charge with the Federal Equal Opportunity Commission. Filing a complaint was just a formality, but the first step in any harassment situation. Helen called the same day after Jenkins was served and was immediately hostile. "Ed, why have you done this? David could lose his job, and any possibility of promotion will be denied." "Helen, why do you care what happens to him? You assured me you had closure with him. By the way, where are you staying? Karen said you weren't with her. Have you moved in with Jenkins? I don't want to see him, especially if it will damage his career. I'm staying with a friend, just so you know." "Is your friend male or female? I can't believe you are talking like this. It is so unlike you. I've never had my marriage ducked over either, and I feel you have played a huge part." Then I disconnected the call. The next day, an off-duty sheriff's deputy found Helen at Jenkins' apartment and served her with the divorce paperwork. That evening, she called again, this time crying. "Ed, how could you have me served? I thought our marriage was worth more than that, and I hoped that maybe we could save it. We had a great marriage till you let that bastard seduce you. I have mattered little in your life the past few months. I knew something was up as soon as you dyed your hair, but I trusted you so much that I never checked. Let's see how long Jenkins keeps you around. And yes, I know you have moved in with him. Have you forgotten he is 15 years younger than you? You are just the current PS, and when he tires of you, I am sure he will kick your ass to the curb and move on. I am splitting everything 50/50, and that includes our children's debts. I checked on the outstanding balance today, and it is just under $400,000, so that means we each have almost a $200,000 loan to pay. I don't know how you will support your lover when he loses his job and pay off the loan as well, but that is your problem. You need to get a lawyer. And I warn you that if you fight the divorce, I will become a monster. I have videos that I will send to everyone that we know. I didn't have any videos, but she didn't know that. The next day I officially quit my job from the insurance business. I did not want to have a job or income during the divorce proceedings. This was a family business, so I could always return because of my sickness. I had worked very little in the past year, and the doctor wanted me to take it easy for the next 6 months. I was bewildered by Helen. On one hand, she wanted to continue in our marriage, but on the other hand, she wanted to keep her duck buddy. Ted called and announced the pharmaceutical company had responded to our case against them. They were caught off guard with the lawsuit and had suspended Jenkins pending an internal investigation. Ted had asked them how many sexual harassment cases it would take to have him terminated. Apparently, the Dallas office was unaware of the problem that caused him to leave the Atlanta office. We definitely got their attention, and they indicated their desire to settle out of court. I asked Ted if we could delay agreeing to settle until after the divorce because I didn't want to share anything with Helen. Helen tried to call, but I didn't want to talk to her, so I declined her call. This action must have infuriated her because she called several times during the day, and I kept refusing her calls. I think she was beginning to feel the pain, and it was only going to get worse. Helen came to the house the next day. "Ed, I need to talk to you, and you're not answering the phone." "No, I didn't answer because I have nothing to say to you. You've decided which bed you want to lay in, and it isn't mine." "Please don't be that way, Helen. I don't suppose I have made myself clear enough, and truth be known, I am tired of repeating myself. I will not tolerate being a fool. You cheated not just once and not just a weekend, but for several months. Then you tried to lie your way out of it. You have hurt me more than I can describe, and because of my health, this isn't the right time in my life to have to deal with all this. Somewhere along the line, you forgot about the in sickness and in health part of our wedding vows. Now you are no longer part of my life. You have lied to me since Christmas and carried on a clandestine affair with your boss. I am sure your company will soon be terminating him, and most likely you too. You have ruined my life, so I am going to do everything in my power to destroy yours and Jenkins too. David was terminated this morning, and I am on administrative leave. He has no savings and is very distraught. Well, that just makes my day. I guess both of you will soon be kicked out of his fancy apartment. Just remember you have a $200,000 debt you have to pay in addition to your car loan and insurance. By the way, you are over 10 days late with your car insurance premium, and under the terms of the policy, it will be canceled today. You had better find yourself a new insurance broker. You have always taken care of all that, so I am stopping my policy. You are really thick, aren't you? There is no us and there is no me in your life anymore. I will no longer act in your best interests. You have a new man in your life to do that, but I guess he is only capable of being a good duck. Your actions brought all this on, so if you want to blame someone, blame yourself. Now, unless there is something you want to discuss, you need to leave. Final update. I didn't want to move, but we had to split our assets and I couldn't buy Helen's share of the house, so I listed it and it was quickly sold. We didn't know anything on it, so my share of the payoff would go a long way to clearing my share of my debt. I found an apartment near the hospital that I could afford. Thankfully, my hospital is one of the best hard hospitals in the South and was now only a few blocks away. I packed up everything I wanted from the house and had it moved. I didn't give Helen any choice concerning what I took, as it was her fault that everything happened. Once I was totally moved, I contacted Helen and told her she needed to get her things out of the house or else I would donate everything to Goodwill. I explained that I was out of the house, which now had a buyer. She only had 2 weeks to move what she wanted to keep. Once again, I found her calling me and shouting into the phone. "You have taken all the nice things from the house. You have removed several things I wanted. I think I was generous, Helen. When you moved out of the house and into your lover's arms, you forfeited your right to anything that we bought during our marriage. You made your choice concerning what was more important, and that did not include me or the possessions in the house." Weeks passed without further communication. The sale of the house had now been completed, and we had split the proceeds. I used my share to pay off my portion of the loan. I hated owing anyone, so I felt good with that debt gone. Ted, my lawyer, called and said that Deb was contesting the terms of the divorce concerning the distribution of our wealth. We had split everything 50-50. I didn't try to hide anything, so I thought to myself, what wealth? The judge was an old guy that had most likely heard thousands of divorce cases. He asked Helen's lawyer what the problem was, since everything had already been divided. Then it suddenly became crystal clear. She wanted 50% of the insurance business. My lawyer and I talked for a minute or two and then spoke to the judge. "Your Honor, my client does not own the insurance business. It belongs to his father. My client is just an employee, and because of severe health problems, he has had to quit. So he is no longer even an employee." Helen's lawyer asked for proof, so my 80-something-year-old father stood up and asked for permission to speak, which the judge granted. I am Ed's dad, and what his lawyer said is the truth. I still own the insurance business, and it will remain in my name until my death. Then it will be passed down to my son. I looked at Helen, and if her face could tell a story, it would read shame. She whispered something to her lawyer, who then stood and said there would be no further contest of the divorce. The judge then declared the divorce final. I was a free man. However, that saddened me, as Helen and I at one time had a great marriage. That was before that base Jenkins arrived on the scene. He was truly a home wrecker. My son had accompanied me to the proceedings and asked me to wait so he could visit the restroom. Helen approached me, which I am sure took some nerve. Ed, I am sorry our marriage came to this, and apologize for lying to you and for cheating. Everything that you have predicted has come true. David left me for a younger woman. His life was destroyed after he was terminated, and he spent a significant portion of the proceeds from the house. And now I am left in debt and have a poorly paying job. I hope this makes you happy. Well, you brought all this on yourself. Everything that I have done has been a reaction to what you've done. I hope you can see that. Can we remain friends? Helen, I'm not sure. Maybe in time. But no, right now I don't think so. You've been the cause of so much pain. And every time I see you, I feel nothing but hurt and agony. Maybe in time I can get over this, but for now, that is how I feel. We had something good for many years. I turned and walked away to start a new life. The pharmaceutical company finally settled out of court. I was $500,000 richer. Maybe I should have held out for more, but at that point, I just wanted to put everything behind me. Besides, it wasn't about the money, it was about getting retribution. Helen never found a job that paid as well as the one she had and remained in debt. Life was just one big struggle after another for her. My children stayed in touch and often helped in different ways, but even they had a hard time forgiving her. According to them, she rarely dated and was looking older than her age. I felt sorry for her, but she had made her own bed, and now it was time to lay in it. Jenkins had a hard life, as every time he applied for a job, his past came back to haunt him. Jenkins didn't have a penny to his name, and to avoid a nasty court case with me, he declared himself bankrupt. His car was repossessed, and he ended up working at Lowe's and living in a tiny apartment. The opulent lifestyle he was used to was gone for good. As for me, I took another 4 months to complete my rehab, then returned to the insurance business part-time, and then eventually full-time to reduce the tax burden. My dad started to transfer 10% of the ownership over to me each year. I dated occasionally, but the right woman hasn't come along yet because for some reason I compared every woman to the old Helen. I saw her at one of my children's houses at Christmas, and she looked terrible. My reaction every time I think of Helen: was it worth it? Would you trade 3 months of sex with a younger man for 30 years of marriage with possibly another 20 to 30 years to go? That's the story. If you liked it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story. Thank you for being here with us.